I bite on that finger.
All right. All right. For Judging Judy. All right.
Hello and welcome to Judging Judy, the podcast that turns the tables on America's least favorite judge. Today's episode comes to us from January 28th, 1998, and is about a bail bondsman who claims the defendant bit off more than he could chew. But before we jump into things, I just want to address my long-running, one-sided feud with that other podcast, Smartless. Recently, at least recent to when I'm recording this, Smartless triplet Will Arnett went on another podcast and talked about how they once had a guest on their show who was such an asshole that they kicked him off after 10 minutes. While others have made it their job to guess who this non-guest was, I'm more interested in all the people Smartless have had on who weren't kicked off after 10 minutes. Ricky Gervais, Chris Pratt, and Bill Gates. Will, you might want to scrub the Bill Gates recording. Clinton a couple of times. Yeah, scrub the Clinton one too. Anyway, to remind us what was going on in the world back when this episode first aired, I brought in my friend, Professor Wikipedia, Doctorate in Cinnamon Raisin. Final Fantasy Tactics was released in North America for the Sony PlayStation. It is the first game of the Tactics sub-series within the Final Fantasy franchise, and the first entry set in the fictional world, later known as Ivalice, a name I am definitely not pronouncing correctly. Despite its fantasy environment, the game developers sought to create a game with a focus on class-based conflict and the rewriting of history, suggesting that Earth and Ivalice might not be so different. Whereas they've got goblins and mind flayers, we've got Stephen Miller and whatever's living in RFK Jr.'s brain cavity. Finance Minister of Japan Hiroshi Mitsuzaka resigned to take responsibility for departmental corruption and was replaced with Hikaru Matsunaga. The idea of a cabinet member resigning because of corruption is so hard for me to understand, I can't make a joke about it. Axel Kanakanaranta was born.
Let me try to say this nice, I'm fine. Kankanranta? Is it okay?
Yeah, that was actually very good.
The Finnish singer was supposed to represent his home country in the 2020 Eurovision Song Contest until the COVID-19 pandemic canceled the event. Axel has since not been granted the chance to perform at Eurovision, a grave injustice not just to Axel, but to his fans worldwide. Hashtag Justice for Axel. That's AKSEL. Thanks for the help, Professor Wikipedia. Next, let's check in on the New York Times crossword for January 28, 1998. The clue for 9 down is ticklish one, and the answer is Elmo. Finally, let's see what was leading the US box office for that day in 1998. Number 3 was Amistad, number 2 was As Good as It Gets, and number 1 was Titanic, which means that once again I am going to talk about number 4, Mouse Hunt, the live-action movie starring Nathan Lane and Lee Evans as 2 adult men doing battle with a mouse to ensure they get the mansion given to them by their geriatric father. Lee Evans, who portrayed Lars Smuts in the movie, had this to say about the movie in a 1997 interview.
Well, Lee, I'm sure that in a couple of years we're going to be sitting here again doing Mouse Hunt 2.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, maybe, I bet, indeed. That's it, let's get to the teaser for today's episode.
Somebody says, hold it, you move it, I'll shoot.
Of course, putting your hands up is no guarantee you won't still be shot.
Blood was spilled.
Okay, you're not supposed to cry over spilled milk, but surely no one can object to crying over spilled blood.
This man's going for his gun like he's some super cop or something.
Or ICE agents Jonathan Ross, Jesus Ochoa, and Raymond Gutierrez. Okay, let's start the case. We've got a bail bondsman, Gene, suing the defendants Frank and Eleanor for bail money owed. But that's not the only reason he's suing.
And that Frank bit his finger when he tried to arrest him.
Gene, our plaintiff, looks like he just had to resign in disgrace as a volunteer high school football coach after it turns out he lied on his resume. He did in fact possess a can-do attitude, but lacked a high school diploma. Frank, the defendant, is wearing a very blue suit jacket, the kind that Sonic the Hedgehog would wear to a court hearing for going 90 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone.
That's not good.
We start off by learning that Gene's witness, Maria, who is his, quote, sub-agent, is the one who wrote the original bond, so Judy has her join the fray. Minor aside, but the first place, whether it's Jimmy John's or Firehouse or Potbelly or Blimpie, whatever, the first sandwich place to name their employees sub-agents will henceforth be known as the official sandwich place of Judging Judy.
You came to her.
Well, I called her.
Because your husband was in jail.
Frank was in jail for possession of stolen property, the kind of crime, unlike participation in a coup organized by the outgoing president, that gets people put in prison. Frank's bail was $25,000.
There's one other charge there, Your Honor. It was PC 273.5, which is domestic violence.
So possession of stolen property and beating up his wife.
A reasonable assumption, but that's not the case.
Actually, I believe it was his sister-in-law.
If you're keeping score, that's 2 well actuallys for our man Gene in less than 2 minutes. If he were as good at being a bail bondsman as he is at correcting people, he wouldn't need to be on Judge Judy.
Unlikely, but yes.
Judy calls the $25,000 heavy bail, which sounds to me like the name of a band kids would have to listen to at Vacation Bible School. For his services, Gene charges 10%, which is practically an arm and a finger.
And you agreed to post the bail for him.
Yes, ma'am.
So he could get out of jail, right?
Right.
That was a nice thing for them to do.
Bail bondsmen are notoriously nice people, driven solely by their altruism. When they're not posting bail, and I don't even know why I'm saying this, because I know everybody knows this, but when they're not posting bail, they're pistol whipping their neighbor's storm drains clear, and they're engaging in high-speed chases after lost dogs, and kicking in doors to rescue fire victims.
The people are kind and generous. They seem wholesome and moral.
Frank mumbles that it's Gene's job to do this, which, while true, will do nothing at all to curry any favor with the judge. If someone is currying favor, is it a Thai curry, an Indian curry, a Japanese curry? Curry Donuts, Northeast Pennsylvania's worst named donut shop? Let me know what kind of curry it is in the comments or by emailing judgingjudypod@gmail.com. Judy yells that yes, it is Gene's job, and that for doing his job he should get paid. A point that you can make just as successfully without screaming.
And at the time your wife came in, all she had was $1,300.
And yet Gene agreed to post the bail all the same because he's just such a gosh darn nice person. You know, when it's a hot summer day, bail bondsmen are known to go in, tie up a fire hydrant, tie it to a chair, and beat it until it sprays forth nice and cool water for the neighborhood kids. Those guys are just, there's nothing like a bail bondsman. To make up for the remainder, Eleanor gave a signed promissory note to Gene. Promissory notes are kind of like the promise ring of bail bondsmen. Judy takes a look at the contract that Eleanor signed, and it doesn't seem to leave much to the imagination. It says that Eleanor agreed to come back 4 days after she signed it to pay off the rest of the bail, something she didn't do. Even after Frank got out of jail, he didn't pay it either.
No, I didn't. I told her, directly, I said, there's no possible way that I'm going to be able to have that money for you.
Frank says that he asked if there were arrangements that they could make to pay off the balance, perhaps thinking of some kind of payment plan or maybe a double or nothing arm wrestling match.
It's in the rule book.
It is. Okay, it is in the rule book.
Just a second. These aren't your relatives.
No, Judy, because if they were his relatives, or at least his sister-in-law, he would have hit them, remember? Judy thinks that the bail company doesn't owe him the convenience of a payment plan. And that's true, but I'm not sure what other option the guy had. It doesn't sound like he was in a position to make $1,300 appear out of nowhere in the span of 4 days, unless he broke the law to do it. It's almost like the bail system is meant to keep people in a vicious cycle of criminal activity and recidivism, all the while leeching money off them and their families, almost.
You may be onto something.
Eleanor chimes in to say that when she signed the agreement, Maria told her that if they were to have any problems making the payment, arrangements could be made. But remember, you've got to get that arm wrestling clause written into the contract. A bail bondsman's subagent's words are worth absolutely nothing.
So I gave her an option to either pay it off in full or do payments.
And I imagine that the installment plan was equally prohibitively expensive, giving Eleanor no real choice at all.
Worse. Cool, so no good options.
Yeah. You signed this piece of paper that promised that you would make the payment to the bail bondsman, who stands to lose all the money, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not saying that Eleanor made the right decision or that she's blameless, but I am saying that they're playing a game that's stacked against them, a game they can't win, and that we shouldn't have any pity on Gene or his business if they get stiffed. Bail bondsmen are on the right side of the law, but that doesn't mean they are ethical or moral or good people. Judy says that Eleanor and Frank got what they needed in the moment. He was out of jail, but that they didn't uphold their end of the arrangement. I can't argue with that, but I can take umbrage and have more sympathy for people on the wrong side of a bad deal.
How many times have you been arrested? Can't try to count on one hand.
It's all fun and games and a good excuse to laugh at someone worse off than you, but it's not really relevant. Judy's saying that he knows how the system works, and so he doesn't have an excuse to have not paid his fair share. Sure. And he shouldn't have stolen property, and he shouldn't have hit his sister-in-law, but I still don't know what he was supposed to do to come up with $1,300 in 4 days, and I don't know why they didn't extend the installment plan option to him after he got out.
They're criminals. Like, violent criminals.
Yeah, the money issue was actually secondary on...
I know.
Okay.
That's his third well, actually, but Judy's shouting him down because what's secondary for him isn't secondary for her. This is her circus. She has a show to host and a man who she wants to make a fool of. She'll worry about facts and all that on her own time. Jean's saying that Frank never showed up to sign another form, which Judy also takes a look at. According to this paper's letterhead, his company is called Aladdin Bonds, which, as of more recent years, is owned by a company called Triton Management, which itself is owned by a company called Endeavor Capital. Triton Management has been the biggest contributor to efforts to stop bail bond reform in California, spending at least $800,000 in 1 year alone to hamper voter-supported reform of a broken, punitive system. California State Senator Bob Hertzberg said this: "We know that private equity firms poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into this campaign, not to protect public safety or decrease the number of innocent people in jail, but to protect their bottom line."
That's all I need to hear.
Returning to the case, Eleanor signed the second contract stating that she would bring Frank in within 48 hours to sign more paperwork. But she didn't do that.
Right, but she told me, because I didn't have the money, she told me not to go in.
Judy calls that baloney. Twice, probably because sopressata twice in a row is next to impossible to say.
Were you told by your wife that you had to go in within 2 days to sign some paperwork?
Frank says no, and Judy declares that too is baloney. Twice. And if I didn't know any better, I'd suspect Judy was in the pocket of big baloney. You know, the Oscar Mayers of the world, the boar's heads.
You know, there's a certain common sense, sir. You've been in jail before, you've been arrested before, you've had bond posted before. You know the drill.
Maybe. Maybe he doesn't know the drill, and that's why he keeps doing the same thing over and over again. Now, I don't know how to believe Frank or Eleanor. They might be lying. They might have also been misled, intentionally or otherwise. Once again, I'm not giving Frank and Eleanor the benefit of the doubt. But I'm certainly not giving it to Jean and Maria either. Judy asks again if they went to Jean's office, and again they say no, because they didn't have any money.
This says when you're released within 48 hours, you have to come to his office. Is that what it says? Correct. It is in English.
That's what this is about, isn't it?
The defendants, I will add, are people of color. Despite what Judy might think of their reading comprehension, the defendants say they understood then and understand now what the contract says, but that they were told something different verbally. Maria insists that she called over and over again and that Eleanor kept putting off coming in, which I don't doubt. I'm positive she didn't have the money. I don't think anyone thinks Eleanor was hiding the money from Maria and Jean. There was no money to hide. She no more had the money than I have the love of my father. Call me all you want, I still don't have it. Should she have signed a contract that said she would have it? Probably not. But people do desperate things. It's not an excuse, it's a fact.
And I told her, okay, if you don't have the money, come in and we can make payment arrangements.
You told me you were going to arrest me.
Come in.
Yeah, I bet they did. That's a story I can believe. And I bet they would have too. Maria says that yes, the contract Eleanor signed indicated that if he didn't show up within 48 hours, they could arrest him. Mind you, if they had arrested him, Michelle would have been out that $1,200. In fact, no matter what, Michelle's out the $1,200. The full amount, in fact, even if Frank were found innocent. All the money goes to the good, honest, hardworking bail bondsmen who lobby to make sure their corrupt cash cow never changes. That's how bail works. You're screwed no matter what. We come back from a break with Judy asking Jean to tell us what happened the day he went to arrest Frank. Apparently, after 2 to 3 weeks of non-payment, there were 2 attempts. The first one at Eleanor's mom's house, which was unsuccessful as Frank wasn't home, though Jean left his business card, which I'm sure smelled like undue confidence and swagger.
You're a liar, man.
Hey!
Fine, you're right. He left his business card, which I'm sure smelled like Axe body spray, but really they're pretty much the same. So we move on to the second attempt.
I was standing in the shadow next to the side of the house when Maria pulled to the light to square the block and come back on a different location. Frank's, as I find out later, it was Frank's younger brother comes out, sees her pull away.
Jean's using a lot of words. His mouth is doing a lot of work, but he's not saying much.
Frank goes running across the street, out to the front door, across the street to his parked car. That is correct.
Throughout this belabored story, Frank is livid at what he's hearing from Jean. He's pacing around and sighing and waving his arms.
Jean, this is a scam.
Jean says that at this point, he yelled for Frank to stop. Then he says Frank looked back, turned, and ran back towards the house, at which point he was able to stop Frank and bring him to the ground.
As we were rolling, I felt his hand go for my gun. I clamped his hand. At that point, I basically gave up on the encounter. My whole purpose in life at that point was to hold the gun.
With Gene's focus solely on his gun, he says Frank was able to get up and straddle him, though it doesn't sound like it was in the least bit romantic gesture on Frank's part.
He was able to straddle my body, get his right hand around my throat.
Tell the truth now.
I'm going to throw you out of the courtroom.
Yeah, you and what bailiff? Gene goes on with his story, saying Frank's got one hand on Gene's throat and one hand on the still holstered gun.
I put my hand up to his head. I can still feel the ridge of his eye socket under my thumb, with the intention of rolling my thumb in. I rolled my hand down across his face to rock his head back and force him off of me. When my hand came down across his face, he clamped down on my left index finger. Still have a scar on each side.
I hope you enjoyed the title of the episode. I was also thinking of finger biting good, but I might use that for the next time we've got a case with a hungry defendant. With Frank's brother also now joining their little dog pile, Gene then either elbowed or kneed Frank, freeing his finger from Frank's mouth. This elicits more groaning from Frank and this request from Judy of Bailiff Bird.
Do me a favor. Would you stand behind him?
Watch those fingers, Bird. We've got a biter. Allegedly.
But maybe your presence is there, Officer Bird, will remind him to keep his mouth shut until it's his turn.
I don't know if Bird is tall or if Frank is short, but wow, the bailiff's got at least a foot on Frank. Put Frank on Bird's shoulders and you could change the light bulbs and a lot of chandeliers. They'd make a formidable duo, platonically speaking, of course. Gene continues to blather on, but seriously, Frank gets no higher than mid-chest on Bird. If they slow danced, platonically, Frank would struggle to get his head on Bird's shoulder. I wonder what their song would be. Truly, Madly, Deeply? No. It would definitely be Stand By Me. Because, that's kind of how they first met, with Bird being ordered to loom over Frank like a lamppost over a corn cob.
It's kind of romantic, isn't it?
Gene describes how they continued wrestling, with Frank's brother also getting into the fracas. There's some standing up, some pushing down. It's all very, very interesting.
Struck me trying to hit my groin missing.
Yeah, no, couldn't be clearer.
After some more punching, including a few thrown Frank's brother's way, Gene says Frank ran to his car to get away.
Maria was parked in the middle of the street on the phone with the local police department. She witnessed the whole thing. Frank got away that night.
At least a happy ending. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'd like to thank our writer, our producer, Frank, for biting Gene's finger. Gene says he provided a report for the police before going to the emergency room, where he probably hoped they could do something about his finger, and maybe his pride too. Part of his lawsuit is for the injuries done to his finger. I don't think any is allocated for his pride. Judy turns things over now to Frank, who begins by saying that he had only ever spoken with Maria by phone and that they had an agreement that he would turn himself in that night at Gene's office. The night of the fight, that is. However, he says before that could happen, while he was on his way to the car to turn himself in the dark.
He's hiding behind a bush, okay? All of a sudden, I'm walking across the street, I'm in the middle of the street, and somebody says, "Hold it. You move it, I'll shoot."
Frank says that with a gun pointed at him, he didn't know who Gene was or what he was doing there.
He never identified himself at all. Okay, I don't know who the heck, he'd be trying to rob me.
He's a bail bondsman. That's exactly what he was trying to do. Frank says that it was at this point that he tried to run back to his house, with Gene giving chase. Frank tried to lose Gene by smacking him, and I say it's about time men smacking men become a thing. Put the guns away, put the knives away, bring smacking back.
Come on, you cowards!
Hashtag bring smacking back.
Okay, then I pick him up and I throw him, body slam him on my garage.
This is unlikely. Gene isn't as big as Bird, but he's big enough that I doubt Frank was able to body slam him. Push him, shove him, sure, certainly. Body slam him, possible. It's possible. But I'd sooner believe that Gene bailed Frank out of jail out of the goodness of his heart than I'd believe that Frank managed to body slam the guy. Throughout Frank's retelling, Gene looks like he just found out his geriatric dad wrote him out of the will in favor of his new 19-year-old second wife. Frank describes Gene going for his gun while the two wrestled, and his own efforts to get the gun and take it from Gene to, prevent himself from being shot. It's a goal a lot of us have. It's number 6 on my bucket list.
This man's going for his gun like it was the thing to do. Like he's some super cop or something.
Bad news, Frank. It's not the super cops that go for the guns. It's the other 99.9%.
And this time he's got, like you said, he's trying to put his finger in my eyes. Instinct, I bite on that finger.
I think they call that impulse bite or flight. Anyway, Frank goes on to say that he took Gene's gun and tossed it away into a bush. Probably Jeb, but maybe W. Frank says that Gene was unjustified in having pulled his gun out, calling him a fool for escalating things in that manner, especially when Frank hadn't even yet had his court date.
Just pay attention to me.
Maybe a title for Judy's next memoir? After some haranguing, Frank concedes that he did not go to Gene's office at 8 o'clock, as he said he would, Though that makes sense since the altercation outside the house, Frank and Eleanor say, happened at 7:30.
Well, I still say we ought to use magic.
Judy ignores the fact that she was wrong and says that regardless of what time Jean came barreling in with a gun, that they had no intention of going to Jean's office. A claim that Judy cannot possibly validate.
They had no intentions of meeting us at their office.
It was all set up.
Judy admits that it might have been a setup, but reiterates that he had no intention of going anyway, which is still not something she has any way of proving. Of course, facts have never been something she lets get in her way. You don't get to be a millionaire many times over by worrying about facts.
Then you just went through a whole story about where does he come off taking out his gun. It's only a bail and I haven't missed my court date. Isn't that what you just told me?
That's correct.
Right. Just a minute. Then at the beginning of the story that you were telling me you thought he was a robber.
Right. At the time, he thought he was being robbed. And in hindsight, he thinks it's ridiculous a guy jumped out of the bushes and threatened to shoot him if he ran without identifying himself, and even though running wouldn't have constituted a threat to Jean. It's really not that hard to believe.
You're not listening to me. No, I'm listening to you, sir.
No, you're really not. You're hearing what you want to hear, and bending it to fit the narrative you decided on well before the case started. There are parts of Frank's story that don't make sense. I still don't believe he could hogtie a grizzly bear or whatever, but there are also parts that are very reasonable, very sensible, if you're willing to consider them.
Not a chance.
We finally come to Judy's decision, the one that was as predetermined as a Harlem Globetrotters game.
You owe him the money for the bail because that's what you promised, madam, to pay him. That's the written... Stand closer to him.
Judy goes on to say that she believes Jean's assault claims are valid for these 3 reasons. He was there to perform a lawful arrest as per the terms of their bail agreement. Frank knew who Jean was, and Frank struck Jean first. For those reasons, Jean is also getting $3,000 for getting slapped, straddled, and bitten.
You're a lucky guy, trust me.
Frank uses his parting words to further sully the otherwise sterling reputation of Jean, our cowboy sheriff of Aladdin bail bonds.
You pull out a gun in front of my kid, sucker, I'll beat you, right? Don't. You're lucky I let you go, okay? You're lucky. You're lucky I didn't pistol whip you with your own gun.
Enjoying the pod? Consider supporting us by sending $1 or $2 our way at tiptopjar.com/judgingjudy. Or don't, whatever. I'm not your boss. Now we come to the part of the show a few of you have been waiting for. It's time for me to judge Judy. I use an entirely arbitrary set of rules, but it all comes down to this. Did Judy deliver justice? Justice to the defendants, the plaintiffs, the people at home, to you and to me. If she did, she's innocent. But if not... I mean, no doubt about it, Judy's guilty. In the same way that the judge barely gave Frank's claim a single thought, I don't have to ruminate much on this one. To Judy, there was a shining hero, a paragon of good, the businessman with a gun. Jean could do no harm. In fact, she indicated that we should view his business as him being nice, as if it were a favor for Frank, as if he weren't in it for the money, and as if this were an act of volunteerism, something he did out of the kindness of his heart. And then we had the criminal. The crook, the repeat offender. She was quick to assume that domestic assault meant that he beat his wife, and that wasn't the only thing she took for granted. Look, I have no sympathy for Frank or his actions, but I was at least willing to hear him out, listen to his story. That wasn't the case for the judge. She knew what she wanted to hear and knew what decision she wanted to reach, no matter what words came out of his mouth. Look, the bail system, flawed as it is, it's not Judy's fault. And I don't expect her to fix it on her 30-year-old fake court TV show. But I also don't need her to champion it. I don't need her to further it by vilifying its victims and elevating the pasty dopes who run around with guns under the name of pseudo-vigilante law. But that's what she did. And for those reasons, today, Judy is guilty. That noise means it's time for Hangman. But this isn't the Hangman you played as a kid when you really ought to have been questioning why the wealth gap was increasing. No, this is Hangman with stakes. And this week we're putting automatic doors up on the gallows. While it used to be the case that humans had to open doors with their own hands, the Dark Ages ended around 1954 with the invention of the modern automatic door. And since then, from grocery stores to malls to funeral parlors, doors have opened essentially magically with nary a pull required from a human hand. And if I win, you will still be able to enter places without having to lift your arm up at all. However, if I lose, automatic doors are done. It may take some time to get accustomed to this new reality, and I fully expect many folks to walk directly into formerly automatic doors, which have been rendered instead into large painful windows. In the same vein, it may be the case that, so unfamiliar with how to open doors, many people find themselves stuck outside of their intended destinations. But that's just how it's going to go, because like I said, this is Hangman with Stakes. Now, as always, I'm using hangmanwords.com, and this week I'm returning to their science words list. As a reminder, I can make 6 incorrect guesses, 6 letters that aren't in the word until I lose. And yeah, I know this would be better on a visual medium. So our answer is 2 words. They're both 5 letters, and as a reminder, we're looking at their science word list. Just to get us started, let's go with C, which is one of the letters in science. There are 2 C's. C blank 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 C, and then space, 5 blanks. And they're lowercase c, so it's not a name. Let's try I, the thing that most of us have 2 of. There's 1 I, C blank blank IC, and then 5 blanks. Let's go with L, as in, I would love if there is an L in at least one of these words. There is none. Disappointing. Okay, so my hangman has a head, and I have 5 more incorrect guesses. Let's go with another vowel. Let's try A, as in A is the letter I'm guessing. No A. So my hangman now has a torso, and I have 4 more guesses to spare. I guess I have 3 more guesses to spare, and then the 4th one, no. Let's try S. There is no S. Wow. Okay. 3 more guesses, and I'm done. Okay, let's go with N, as in, it would be nice if there were an N, but there isn't. There is not an N. All right, getting a little dicey here. Let's try H, as in hey. I wonder if there's an H in these words. There is not, wow. All right. What vowel do I have left? I have an O, there has to be an O or U. Let's try O. Nope, it was cubic meter. Cubic meter, wow. We were 1 cubic meter away from saving automatic doors, but now they are closed to us. Now you're gonna have to push and pull, and I don't even know what to tell you. We're probably gonna have to have training sessions, Zoom meetings, workshops, because those doors aren't just gonna open themselves anymore. You're gonna have to do it. It's back to the bad old days, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. With our last few moments together, I wanted to share an out of context quote from Judge Judy. I think that women have been defined by other people for far too long. It's time for women to take back their own definition. That's it. Fornicate, like, share, and subscribe, but whatever you do, don't support the bail system.